Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up a topic that usually makes people want to run for the hills.
Or at the very least, engage their spam filters.
It's true. It is a word that just carries so much baggage.
You hear it and you immediately think of, manipulation or interruption or just noise.
We are talking about marketing. And look, if you're listening to this and you just rolled your eyes, I get it. We are all conditioned to think of marketing as that, pushy salesperson in a cheap suit.
That's the ick factor. And it's valid because we've all been on the receiving end of bad marketing. But today, we are going to completely dismantle that definition. We are diving into Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing.
And this isn't just some how-to guide on running Facebook ads. It's it's a philosophical take on how we connect with other humans.
Right.
The mission for this deep dive is to help you stop shouting at strangers and start doing work that actually matters.
Godin's core thesis is that marketing is not about using consumers to solve your company's problem, which is usually, we need more cash.
Right.
Real marketing is the generous act of helping someone solve their problem. It is the act of making change happen.
The act of making change happen. I love that definition. It broadens the scope so much. It means we're all marketers, right?
Exactly. I mean, if you're a parent trying to get your toddler to eat peas, you are marketing the idea of health.
Or at least the idea of avoiding a timeout.
Yeah, that too. If you're asking for a raise, you're marketing your value. If you're running a nonprofit, you're marketing a vision of a better world. We are all in the business of influencing change.
Okay, so if we accept that we're all marketers, we have to look at where most of us go wrong. And Godin starts with this classic example from Theodore Levitt about the drill bit.
This is one of the most famous ideas in marketing, but Godin adds this extra layer to it that most people miss.
So the original quote is something like, people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill bit. They want a quarter-inch hole.
Right. It's the classic sell the benefit, not the feature advice. Don't tell me about the steel alloy. Tell me about the hole I need.
Sure.
But Godin pushes back. He says, wait a minute. Do you actually want a hole? Because if I came over to your house and just started drilling holes in your drywall, you wouldn't be very happy.
I would definitely call the police.
Exactly. The hole is actually a problem. It's damage. So why do you want the hole?
Well, you want the hole so you can install a shelf.
Okay. And why do you want the shelf?
To put my books on it. To get all the clutter off the floor.
Right. And why do you want the clutter off the floor?
Because?
Yeah.
I guess because when the room is messy, I feel chaotic. I feel like I'm losing control. When it's clean, I feel, competent.
Bingo! That is the bottom of the stack. You aren't buying a drill bit. You are buying the feeling of safety. You are buying the feeling of being a competent, organized person.
Wow. You're buying the respect of your spouse who sees the clean room?
Precisely. And that's the mistake everyone makes. They market the drill bit. They talk about the RPMs and the battery life. But effective marketing connects with that irrational, emotional drive for safety, belonging, or status.
If you ignore the emotional state, you're just noise.
You're just noise.
It seems like this requires a total shift in perspective. Instead of looking at what you have in your hand, your product, you have to look at who is standing in front of you.
Which brings us to the lock and key analogy. This is my favorite visualization in the book because it explains so clearly why so many startups and, creators fail.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So most creators are obsessed with their product. They go into their workshop, metaphorically speaking, and they spend years crafting a key. It's a beautiful key. It's shiny. It has complex ridges. It's made of gold.
This is their solution. The app, the book, the gadget.
Right. And then once they've made this perfect key, they run out into the world and start chasing people down. They're trying to jam this key into every lock they see.
Shouting, look at my key! Why won't you let it in? It's a great key!
And that feels like harassment. That feels like spam. It is spam. And it's exhausting for the marketer. You're facing constant rejection because you made a solution without ever understanding the problem.
So Godin says you have to do it backward.
You have to do it backward. Find the lock first. Find a group of people, a specific tribe who have a yearning, a pain point, a dream. That is the lock.
And you have to understand that lock better than they do.
Yes. And then you go make a key that fits it perfectly.
That requires so much empathy. You have to get out of your own ego.
It requires a sort of realized humility. You have to accept that other people don't want what you want. They don't believe what you believe. And if you try to force your worldview on them, you will fail. You have to show up and say, I see you. I see what you're struggling with. I made this for you.
But here's the trap I see people falling into. They say, okay, I want to find a lock, so I'm going to pick the biggest lock possible. I want to sell to everyone.
Ah, yes. The trap of the masses. The seduction of scale. We look at Nike or Coca-Cola and we think that's the goal, but Godin is very, very firm on this. Mass means average.
Unpack that. Why does mass mean average?
Well, because if you try to make something that appeals to your grandmother, your teenage nephew, a hipster in Brooklyn, and a farmer in Idaho, what does that product even look like?
It has to be pretty bland, right? You can't take any risks because you might alienate one of them.
Exactly. You have to smooth off all the interesting edges. You end up with beige. And in a crowded marketplace, beige is invisible. Nobody talks about beige.
Nobody becomes a super fan of beige.
No. So if we shouldn't aim for the masses, where do we aim? You aim for the smallest viable market.
That sounds terrifying to a business owner. Small, it sounds like broke.
It feels completely counterintuitive, but it's the only way to grow. Godin asks, what is the minimum number of people you would need to influence to make this project worth doing?
He brings in the 1,000 true fans concept here, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, from Kevin Kelly's theory. If you have just 1,000 people who are absolutely obsessed with what you do, people who will buy the deluxe edition, drive across the state to see you, tell all their friends.
You have a sustainable life.
You have a sustainable life. You don't need millions. You just need true fans.
He uses a great visual for this, the sunflower.
The sunflower is perfect. Everyone looks at the flower part, the tall, bright yellow head that you can see from a mile away. That represents the mass market, the hype, the visibility.
Everybody wants to be the tall flower.
Of course. But the flower doesn't just float in the air. A tall sunflower requires a deep, complex root system.
And the smallest viable market is the roots.
The roots. You have to dig deep into a specific community. You have to serve them so well that you become indispensable to them. That gives you the stability to eventually grow tall.
If you try to build the flower without the roots, you tip over.
You just tip over.
So let's talk about that tribe. Once we've identified the small group, our roots, how do we actually get them to move? How do we build that connection?
This is where we get into a bit of anthropology. Godin argues that marketing creates culture, and the strongest driver of culture is the desire to fit in.
There is a specific mantra he uses for this. I think it's the most important sentence in the book.
People like us do things like this.
People like us do things like this. It sounds so simple, but let's break that down.
It's all about identity and affiliation. When you buy a Tesla, you aren't just buying a car. You're telling yourself and the world, I am the kind of person who cares about the future, or I am a tech-forward innovator.
So when you buy organic food, you're saying, people like us care about what we put in our bodies.
Exactly. Marketing isn't about persuading people to change their personality. It's about reinforcing the identity they already want to have. You are offering them a badge. You're giving them a way to signal their status within the tribe.
He illustrates this with the standing ovation example. I found this fascinating because I've seen it happen 100 times, but I never really analyzed the mechanics of it.
It's a perfect experiment in social pressure. Imagine you're at a Broadway show, the curtain falls. Does everyone jump up at the exact same millisecond?
No. No.
Never. Right. It starts with the outliers. Maybe 3 or 4 people in the front row. The risk takers. They stand up immediately. Maybe they just love the show, or maybe they want to be seen as the people who get it.
So they are the spark.
They're the spark. Now, look at the people sitting right behind them. They see the risk takers standing, and they think, well, people like us appreciate high art. I don't want to be the guy sitting down while the true fans are standing. So they stand up.
And then the wave just moves back through the theater.
It spreads row by row until finally you get to the, the curmudgeons in the back row. They might have hated the play, but when the whole theater is standing, they stand up too.
Because the pain of being the only one sitting, the pain of being an outcast, is just too high.
Exactly. People like us don't sit when everyone else is standing. That is the power of the tribe. You don't need to convert the whole theater at once.
You just need to convert the front row.
It's the front row, and then you let the culture do the rest.
But getting even that front row to stand up requires something. It requires overcoming inertia. And Godin talks about 2 forces here that people often confuse: tension and fear.
This is such a critical distinction. We often avoid tension because we think it's negative, but Godin says tension is the engine of change.
Okay, so what is the difference?
Fear is paralysis. Fear says, if I stand up, everyone will laugh at me. Fear stops you from acting.
Okay.
Tension, on the other hand, is the gap. It is the realization that here's where I am and over there is where I could be.
Like, I'm currently feeling sluggish and out of shape, but I could be running a marathon?
That gap creates a psychological itch. That is tension. I might get left behind if I don't learn this new skill. Or I might miss out on this amazing community if I don't join.
It sounds a bit stressful.
It is stressful, but it's a productive stress. It's the stress of growth. If there is no tension, there is no movement. If you are perfectly content with your status quo, you will never change.
So the marketer's job is to create that tension.
The marketer's job is to highlight the tension, to say, you are right here and that's okay, but wouldn't it be amazing to be over there? And then, and this is key, you offer your product or service as the bridge to relieve that tension.
So the tension is the problem. The product is the resolution.
Exactly. But you have to be careful about who you create this tension for, because different people handle it differently. This brings us to the neophiliacs versus the mass market.
Neophiliacs. I love that word. It sounds like a rare species.
It just means lovers of the new. These are your early adopters. They are the people who camp out for the new iPhone. They download the beta version of software even though they know it's buggy.
Why do they do that?
Because they get a dopamine hit from being first. They want the magic. They want the novelty. For them, the tension of missing out on the new thing is unbearable.
And the mass market?
The mass market is the opposite. They hate bugs. They hate risk. They want safety. They don't want to be first. They want to be sure. They want to know that it works.
So treating these two groups the same is a disaster.
A total disaster. Godin calls this the chasm. You cannot market to the masses using the same language you use for the neophiliacs.
He uses the story of Penguin Magic to illustrate this.
Yes. Penguin Magic is an online magic shop. Now, imagine if they tried to sell complex card tricks to the general public. Imagine they targeted you or me with ads for the invisible deck.
I mean, I might think it's cool for a second, but I'm not going to buy it. I don't have time to learn sleight of hand. It would just be noise to me.
It would be spam. But to the tribe of magicians, the neophiliacs of that world penguin magic is paradise. They created a site where tricks are released at midnight, and immediately there are forums of people discussing the technique, reviewing the gimmick, debating the nuances.
You didn't even try to cross the chasm to the people who didn't care.
No. They ignored the masses. They focused entirely on the neophiliacs. They built a culture for the people who wanted that tension, the tension of, I need to know how this trick works. And because they served that smallest viable market so well, they became the dominant player.
This whole discussion really circles back to the idea of permission. You can't force magic on people who don't want it.
Permission marketing is the foundation of all of this. In a world of infinite noise, you cannot just interrupt people. You have to earn the privilege of contacting them. It has to be consensual.
I would like to hear from you.
Exactly.
This brings up the big ethical question, though. We've talked about status, about creating tension, about tribal pressure. These are powerful psychological levers. Is marketing manipulative? Is it evil?
It's a fair question. Godin uses the analogy of a hammer. A hammer is a tool. You can use a hammer to build a house for the homeless, or you can use it to break someone's window.
The hammer itself isn't evil.
No. The morality comes from the person holding it. He has a pretty stark quote about this. It's obviously immoral to rob someone's house and burn it down.
Sure.
But he adds, it is similarly immoral to market someone into foreclosure. If you are using these tools, status, fear, tension to sell predatory loans or addictive products or things that just plain don't work, you are doing something evil.
You are exploiting the tribe.
Absolutely. But the flip side, and I think this is the most empowering part of the book for people who are scared of selling, is the marketer's obligation.
Cool.
This is the twist. If you truly believe in your product, if you have a solution that actually solves a problem or relieves suffering or brings joy, then you have a moral obligation to market it.
Because if you don't, the people who need you will never find you.
Exactly. If you stay in the shadows because you're afraid of being seen as salesy or because you're shy, you are denying people the solution they need. You are leaving them with their tension.
So marketing becomes an act of generosity.
Yes. You aren't taking money from them. You are giving them a path forward. You are turning on a light in a dark room.
That is such a profound shift.
It takes the ego completely out of the equation. And that's really the summary of the whole book. Stop shouting, start serving.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the quarter-inch hole to the neophiliacs, from the sunflower to the ethics of the hammer.
It's a dense book, but it's a necessary one.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we always like to leave you with something concrete, something you can apply immediately. And Godin poses 2 questions in the book that act as a litmus test for any project you're working on.
And these questions sound simple. But I challenge you, don't just nod your head. Actually try to answer them. Write them down, because they are brutally difficult to answer, honestly.
What is the first question?
Question 1. Who's it for?
And everyone is the wrong answer.
If you answer everyone, you have already failed. Be specific. Who is that human being? What are they afraid of? What do they dream about? Who is the specific tribe you are seeking to serve?
And the second question?
What is the change you seek to make?
Not how many units do I want to sell?
No.
Ah,
What is the emotional or status shift you are trying to cause? I want to change them from confused to clear, from lonely to connected, from unseen to recognized. If you can't articulate the change, you aren't ready to market.
who's it for, and what's the change?
If you can answer those two things, everything else, the ads, the copy, the strategy, it all becomes easy.
That is the perfect place to leave it. Stop trying to get more followers and start trying to matter to the ones you already have.
Go deep, not wide.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive into This is Marketing. Go find your tribe, earn their permission, and make some generous change. We'll see you next time.